Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another live edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And of course, I'm your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, and it's good to be back with you. We appreciate all of you joining us, whether it's live or watching our rebroadcast, because it's with the participation of our audience and folks like you that we have been able to make a number of list for podcasts to be watched here in Northern Virginia. And of course, we're also making lists of people searching for our podcast and coming out number 5 and number 9 on the list in some of these areas. So we really appreciate your help and we appreciate your participation on the show. Also, I just want to say for those of you that have sent emails into the show, we appreciate that as well. So keep them coming. Now, before we get started tonight, as you know, we've been doing something just a little different, and I want to give a shout out to a couple of organizations. Heroes Bridge in Warrenton, Virginia. They are, and there's their website, heroesbridge.org. They are a veteran service organization that concentrates on helping veterans over the age of 65. So, you know, as us older veterans, we continue to get older, we need all the help we can get, let me tell you sometimes. So, you know, it's good that they are concentrating on that. I want you to take a look at their website, heroesbridge.org. They've got a social July 28th coming up. They're also still working on their Veterans Village. They're in the process of trying to build. So go take a look at their organization, take a look at their website, and see if there's something you can do to help them out. Even if you're not local and you can find it in your hearts to donate to the organization, it's a really worthy cause. So I hope you will take a look at that. I also want to say thanks to Wreaths Across America. Wreaths Across America, we have a broadcast agreement with them, and there's their website as well. Going Solo Veterans Corner can be heard every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Wreaths Across America radio network. You can find them on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. Just search Wreath, and you'll be able to find the radio network, and you can listen to rebroadcast of my show there every Monday afternoon. And for those of you that just can't get enough of my voice, that's where you need to go. I know there's a bunch of you out there, so take a look, and we appreciate their partnership with us. And of course, they're a worthy organization helping to Wreaths on all of the grave sites in Arlington and a lot of the veteran cemeteries across the country. So thanking them for that. All right, let's get into tonight's show. And we've got something a little different tonight in that I want to welcome our guests. First of all, both retired Army officers, Joseph Fontanella, a retired Army colonel, and his wife, Sharon Fontanella, is a retired Army lieutenant colonel. And I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about them. And I'll start with Sharon because we know it should be ladies first, right? She's a retired lieutenant colonel with 20 years of service, served in the U.S. Army Intelligence Corps, and was a former Department of Defense contractor, also serving in intelligence and security. Now, the interesting thing was Sharon was a faculty member at the Military Academy, West Point. So I'm sure that was some interesting times. She's also served as an adjunct for Liberty University, instructor of geography. And the interesting thing is, we're going to get into what they do right now, but I think you'll find interesting. But she also has done extensive volunteer work in church youth groups, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, field hockey at high school and middle school. So she's been a very busy lady. We also want to welcome her husband, Joseph, or Joe. I'm assuming that most people call you.
Yes, sir.
Joe was a 26-year Army veteran, retired as a colonel, and of course, spent a lot of his time in the defense community. He's a retired colonel with extensive combat engineering, topographic, and construction experience, to include some combat service in Southwest Asia. Joe, I'm assuming, was that Desert Storm you were talking about? Or?
Iraqi Freedom.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And after retiring, he went on to another career as a senior executive service in the Department of Defense. And You're also an adjunct professor as well for Liberty University. So you and Sharon have been very busy, and you're now both heavily involved in the Krav Maga self-defense programs, and we're going to talk about that. But first, let me just say I want to welcome both of you to the show tonight, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes.
So I have to ask you, and this is always an interesting question. You were a dual military couple. How did you meet and get together?
There's probably two versions of the story. We were both assigned. We were both stationed at Fort Benning. That was our initial duty station. We were assigned at 197th Infantry Brigade, which is sort of a post-Vietnam era 2nd Infantry Brigade. It actually kind of models the brigade combat team structure now. I was an engineer officer in the engineer company, large engineer company. Sharon was in the MI detachment there. And the 197th was supposed to be a, force projection unit. So they were very concerned about, movement and being able to load up on aircraft and deploy. So they appointed quarter second lieutenants as movement officers to figure out, how to cube and weight and put stuff on airplanes. So Sharon and I both ended up in that duty position for our units. And so we were at a movements officer meeting. I can't think of anything more boring, but a movements officer meeting at the brigade headquarters. And one of my buddies was the assistant S4 of the brigade. And, that's where I met Sharon for the first time. And, I asked him to introduce us. And we went on a date.
Well, you're not going to tell him that you were really enamored with my Texas drawl?
Yeah, I was sort of surprised by that. Actually.
The first time I spoke in a meeting, you go, whoa, I don't know about that.
I can tell you some sort of So, I invited her. There's some debate over whether or not this counts as a date. So there was a little bowling alley up on County Hill where the brigade was stationed, and I invited her to go have coffee at the bowling alley. And so we started dating after that. But I count that as a first date. She does not. I count it as a date because I invited her. She accepted. I paid for the coffee, and so as far as I was concerned, that was a date. So
he also took me to a clothing sales store. He counted that as a date too.
Yeah, so we had two.
Oh gosh!
I know.
Inexpensive dates as second lieutenants. Yeah. So that's
clothing sales store, huh?
Yeah. He was. Well, you were there about 6 months before I got there. So he was showing me around. Showing me the ropes. Yeah. And of course, Joe volunteered to help me with my movement books. So he would come to my office and help me with that work. So that could have been a date too, couldn't it?
Yeah, that was a date. Yeah.
And then you took me to retreat.
Yeah, we went to a retreat ceremony. It was very romantic.
Okay, hey Joe, I'm just going to ask you if you would, when you talk, lean in just a little bit, because your mic is kind of fading out, if you would.
All right. Yep. Sharon's kind of hogging the center of the thing here, so I'll try to move over a little bit. All right.
But I do have to say, I married this gentleman 6 months after I met him, and we've been married 44, almost 45 years.
Wow.
So I knew a good thing when I saw him. But I have to tell a funny story about this. When I was at Texas A&M and ROTC, I'm a Texas Aggie, people would come up, some of the cadets would come up to me and says, well, I don't know why you want to go in the Army. You want to go in the Army because you want to find a husband. And I'd look at them and I'd say, really? There's a lot easier ways to find a man than joining the United States Army and spending 20 years in uniform, but you'll figure that out on your own later.
Wait a minute. You said that was at Texas A&M?
Yes.
Well, there were plenty of cadets there if you wanted to find somebody, wasn't there?
Yeah. I married a good. I went from a Texas girl to having the last name of a Fontanella. Yeah. Married a good Italian boy.
So Joe, let me ask you: was she one of those ladies that could make the word "well" 2 syllables? Well.
Actually, if we have time for a little story, I will tell you a story. Sure. So I was talking to her one day, and she was telling me a story. Her boss was a guy named Pat Racinto. He was a major. He's since passed away. He was a special forces officer in Vietnam. And she's telling me the story. She says, yeah, I was talking to Major Cento, and he said that they were in this village and they found a body in a whale. And I said, a whale? She said, a whale. So was this on the ocean? Did the whale wash up on? I was dead serious. Did the whale wash up on shore? How did they find a body in a whale? She goes, a whale, a hole in the ground with water in it. What do you don't understand what I'm talking about? So it was spelled. It wasn't spelled W-H-A-L-E. It was spelled W-L-L. So her a lot of her verbs sound the same. A lot of her vowels sound the same. So yeah.
So that's what really endeared us for 44 years.
So that's a very specific.
Our vocabulary.
Yeah. So yes, you know what? Just that whale is 2 words. Two syllables.
Fun, right?
Yeah, we had fun.
So it's a good thing she didn't tell you that it was around the corner, right?
Well, I don't say finger either. And I don't say hair. So I had to educate him on the difference, by the way, between a Southern accent and a Texas drawl.
Well, I think it's admirable. I mean, both of you spent very successful careers in the military, retiring a lieutenant colonel and a colonel, which, takes a lot of dedication. And, seeing that, especially Sharon being a teacher at the military academy, what were you teaching there?
We both taught geography, and that's why I went on to teach that at Liberty. So we taught geography, military geography, world geography.
Yeah.
Which it was interesting to see the cadets understand that if you're going to serve in overseas locations in war and in peace, you kind of have to understand the geography, the human geography, the physical geography. And so it was a lot of fun to get them to be more aware of how that plays into all situations in the military. So had a lot of fun doing it.
I have to tell you both, since you were both officers, and I'm sure you both saw this during your time being an old first sergeant. I used to have some good fun with some of my lieutenants, and but it's amazing to see the caliber of some of those young people that come out of the academy after you guys teach them. Or whether it's in some of the other schools, because I did run into some really good officers, and for you guys to spend your career and come out on top the way you did, I think is very admirable. And Joe, I think you said you served in Desert Storm.
No, I was I served in Iraqi Freedom.
Okay, all right.
I was in the Seaflick of Third Army during the invasion of Iraq.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because I was in 2nd ACR during Desert Storm. So I did that first 3-country tour back in 1990 and 91. And then came back to Germany and ended up going to Bosnia and Kosovo after that. So you and I were in the same place, just at different times.
Well, there were some people who came back for the sequel, and then several times after that. So I think hats off to, a lot of folks, sort of towards the end of my career, a lot of the folks that sort of followed on, they multiple tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan time and time again. And, honestly, when I hear people complain about, younger generation and Generation Z and whatnot, I got to tell them that, a lot of those young folks, they answered the call and they carried the water for a long time, and I think it's unfortunate that they get painted with the same brush. That that they're not capable or they're pampered, because a lot of these young folks, they answered the call, and when the country needed them, they showed. So I have a lot of respect for the young people that are serving today and that serve. I teach at Liberty now, and I have a lot of students that are veterans. I have a lot of active duty students in my classes. These guys are, carving time out of their day when others are going out woohooing and having a good time to educate themselves and to improve themselves and make themselves more competitive. So good on them. I'm really proud to have served. I'm really proud of our Army today.
And we have some really amazing veterans come to our Krav Maga school. I was training with a 28-year-old former Marine. And man, he almost clocked me with an elbow one night. I said, Hunter, I said, slow down. I'm a little older than I used to be. I can't go as fast or as hard as you can. And he was very respectful. So we made it through the drill without anybody getting hurt. But I just, man, he was great. I love training with him, his enthusiasm. And so even in our business that we run now, we're still seeing these dedicated young people coming up through the ranks. And we're so appreciative of what they're doing for our country now.
Yeah, I know you guys both were adjuncts for Liberty, correct? Liberty University?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, my younger brother, who was an 8-year Air Force veteran, he finally went back through their extension program and finished his degree.
Liberty is they are very generous to veterans. They make it very affordable for them to, especially at the undergraduate level to, sorry, our dog it's really hot here, if you know. So she's inside the house right now, so she may bark occasionally. So
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so Liberty's very, 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 very veteran friendly, and a lot of the faculty have served and are very understanding of some unique challenges that folks have trying to get an advanced degree or even a bachelor's degree or even an associate's degree, as they're serving. So it's a great school.
So Joe, I wanted to ask you, I know Sharon finished her undergraduate and her graduate degree. Where did you go for yours?
So I went to the New York State College of Environmental Science and Forestry and graduated in 78. And then we both were sent to Michigan State by the Army to get a graduate degree in geography to go teach at the military academy.
Wow.
And then after I started this while I was still in active duty, and I had to take a break while I was deployed, but I started a doctorate in education while I was at Liberty, and finished that up. I whipped through that in 7 years, so I took the full amount of time they allowed.
Yeah.
And finished in 2008, and then started teaching there part-time as an adjunct soon thereafter. So
how long have you been teaching there now? Is it
since 2008?
Yeah.
I've been teaching there 17
Yeah,
years.
17 years. That's what I thought.
A course at a time. I started off teaching in the School of Education, teaching conflict resolution and research methods, and a few other sort of core courses, and then began teaching in the College of Arts and Sciences. So I currently teach their military geography graduate course and a physical geography undergraduate and a couple courses here and there when they have a need for folks to kind of fill in. It's a great opportunity, especially in retirement, to be able to do that and continue to serve and kind of keep your brain sharp. And I'll tell you that some of these students, especially in the military geography course I teach, a lot of vets, a lot of national security professionals. So Liberty has a program, both a master's in geography, but they also have some master's programs that are really focused towards that demographic. And so we get a lot of folks in that are either active duty or maybe retired or maybe working in the defense or intel community somehow, and they're working on a graduate degree. And it's just a real pleasure to deal with these folks because they're professionals. So they bring that attitude and they bring that real high interest to the course. And so reading their papers and getting a chance to know these folks has really been a privilege.
I think it's kind of interesting because I've had a number of course, veteran guests on, and we all seem to follow very similar career paths because, I did very similar to you guys, spent my military career, spent a civil service career, and at the same time, I had a concurrent 20-year career teaching for Nova here as an adjunct. And it's, I don't know whether that's part of what's driven you too, is that, I was an instructor in the military and you guys were teaching at the academy, but you still have that kind of desire to share when you retire. You feel comfortable in front of people and talking and teaching. So it seems like a lot of us old veterans end up doing that, following that same path.
I would say you're absolutely right. I have some friends that they really took the hard path. They went to teach high school math.
Oh, no.
Or physics. We know some that
or
taught physics.
or chemistry. I mean, those are great souls, right? I mean,
Mhm.
teaching college students is a whole different thing, but teaching in the public schools and even in private schools, it's a huge commitment.
Yes.
And folks that are willing to do that. But I think, as officers, non-commissioned officers, we train soldiers, we train leaders, and so moving into education in one form or another, either higher education, secondary, even elementary education, it's sort of the same thing.
It's a natural progression in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of interesting how a lot of us end up following that same path. But we're going to take a quick break. And of course, to our audience, when we come back from the break on the other side, we're going to continue our conversation with Joe and Sharon, and we're going to get them to share with us what they're doing now. And I think you'll find it interesting. So hold on, and we'll be right back.
In service of our nation, you gave everything you had. You sacrificed your comfort, your peace, and sometimes even your well-being. Over 3 decades, Hill and Ponton has helped to be a guiding light for veterans seeking their rightful disability benefits. When our heroes are in need, we are not just lawyers. We're an ally, a team who understands the struggles you faced. If you're a veteran seeking the benefits you deserve, let us stand with you on this journey, because every battle deserves a hero, and no hero should fight alone.
Living in a world filled with lunacy, it seems that stress and turmoil follow us everywhere we go. Perhaps it's gotten to the point where you wish you could turn off the distractions of daily living and have a good laugh. Well, we have a recommendation for you. Pick up a copy of The Dunce Cap, a humorous and satirical look at American society and the follies of our culture. Join the author Paul Holbert as he takes you on a trip through the nonsensical and often ridiculous practices of our everyday lives, from political correctness and our legal system to the folly of the media and our obsession with reality television. See how these and other outrageous practices of everyday people make us a perfect cast for the next slapstick sitcom. So go ahead, you know you need it. Take a frank look at the more nonsensical side of American society and see why we are prime candidates for the stool in the corner and the dunce cap that sits on top.
All right, welcome back, everyone. And those were our great sponsors. We always want to thank them because they help us keep the show going. We are definitely appreciative of Nationwide IT Services and, of course, Hill and Ponton, PA, Veteran Service Disability Attorneys. They're a couple of great sponsors, and we really appreciate all that they do for us. All right, we're going to get back to our conversation now with Joe and Sharon Fontanella. And, of course, we mentioned before the break that both of them were career Army officers, both retiring. And they've now moved into, well, after second careers and concurrent careers. We want to talk a little bit about more of what they're doing. And I know you both kind of morphed into the self-defense field and in the self-defense community a little differently. But Sharon, I know you had attended a woman's self-defense class and then realized, hey, this is a good thing. Why don't you share with us, if you would, how you got into, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, the Krav Maga or Krav Maga?
Maga, Krav Maga.
Yeah. So why don't you share with us how you guys got started and what you're doing?
So we have 2 children, 2 daughters. One of my daughters found out about a women's self-defense center seminar. And she said, Mom, why don't you come with me? I think it'd be fun. And I said, yeah, let's go. So I went, and I really liked what it was teaching. And it made me think, man, I wish I'd known this stuff in the Army, but I'm kind of glad I never needed it while I was in the Army. But having heard about so many things that have happened after I left the service, I'm thinking women need this training. I was glad to hear the Marine Corps has a Krav Maga program that they offer, and I've heard the Army starting to do some things in that realm. But for women, but Krav Maga is for women in general. But I was particularly interested in it, having been in the military and hearing some of the stories of what happened during some of the wars, and even in peacetime, some of the things that happened with our women veterans. But so I decided to go back to the school that offered the seminar, and I came home and I said, Joe, he had just retired from the civilian government, from his SES job. And we like to do things together. That's what's probably helped us stay married for 45 years. And I said, I think you would enjoy this, because we didn't want to sit on a couch watching TV all the time. We wanted to be up, be active, stay healthy. So I said, let's go check out the regular program at this school. And so we did. A few weeks later, we decided to sign up and start training at this other school and loved it. We trained there for almost 3 years. And I don't know if you want me to get into how we started the business. That's kind of where I'm going. But I saw a lot of value. By the way, Krav Maga is Hebrew. It's an Israeli martial art, and it is Hebrew for contact combat. And our vernacular, hand-to-hand combat. But it's more than that. It teaches when we can really get into what we teach. But Krav Maga is Hebrew. It's Hebrew.
Let me just, before you go on, I'm sorry, before you go on, let me just tell our audience that, I mean, both of you are both certified black belts. And I know you said you were heading in this direction, but you are both now teaching at your own school. So go ahead and continue and let us.
Well, let's clarify, because I don't want to be called out by somebody later on. So, you know, we co-own it with another family. We started it with our chief instructor, a guy named Greg Mills, who's a very, very skilled martial artist and has a background originally in American Tang Soo Do and some other martial arts, but has been doing Krav Maga for a long time. And so we are certified instructors, but we're typically not instructing. I mean, most people don't want to be taking a class from a 69 and 68-year-old. So we have full-time certified instructors that continue to train. They're young people, younger people. They're, you know, Greg is 39, but certainly much younger than us, and certainly, you know, more athletic and more skilled than us. So I don't want to leave you the impression that you come to our school, you're going to pick up these geezers teaching you. So, but we
do teach. Joe and I go and do seminars. I just did a presentation at the Chamber of Commerce. I've been to women's conferences and done not just talk about the business, but demonstrating and teaching some basic skills. We've gone and taught women in some pro bono for some nonprofit groups. For me, I'm a big advocate for training women and girls, although I train with everybody. And but Joe's right. Our instructors at our school are professionals. They are not only highly belted in Krav Maga, but they have gone through hundreds of hours of instructor training. So we have also gone through instructor training. So we are capable, but our normal instructors are not the older people. We run the business. We're engaged in the community. We'll do a lot of the seminars in the community to keep our instructors free to teach our 260 students.
So we're building relationships, especially with our local police department. So 3 of us just went through RAD training.
Have you ever heard of that? RAD
is a nationally recognized program that police departments typically host. It's rape, aggression, defense. And so it's sometimes they involve people in aggressor suits, sometimes they don't. A lot of it is situational awareness, a little bit of it is self-defense. But our focus is we see ourselves as a community resource. And frankly, to a certain extent, we see it as a ministry to help people. We are not the oldest students. We're close to the oldest students, martial artists in the school. We do have somebody that's a little bit older than us at 72, but we're seeing a population of new students that are in their 60s. And why are they doing that? Well, as you get older, you sometimes become targeted. You become more vulnerable, right? So we're looking to give back across the community at all levels. For children, we have, we find a lot of children are being bullied. And so, part of our program is to teach self-defense, but also bully management. So we try to be a whole cloth self-defense provider for our community. Everything from teaching combatives to self-defense techniques to defending against, weapons as well. So we've been in business about 3 years now. We started with 13 students that kind of came with us from another school. We're sitting around 260 right now.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know that just the idea of the self-defense and learning self-defense. I took Taekwondo when I was still in high school. And then when I got to Korea, my first tour in the Army, I actually took Judo when I was in Korea, and I enjoyed it. But I think you're right. I mean, I had a chance to look at some of your little videos that were playing on your website, some of the students in the classes and what you were doing. And I think you're right, teaching, especially the youngsters, not only teaching them how to defend themselves, but teaching them a little bit of self-confidence, because the self-confidence goes a long way. And so I think it's kind of interesting what you guys are trying to do, especially with the outreach you're doing in the community, because both of you seem to be heavily involved in the community.
We are. Yeah. We want to be involved in the community. We're not your typical martial arts school. We believe that what we teach is a life skill. I tell parents all the time, you want your child to learn how to swim? And I'll say yes, because at some point your children are going to be exposed to bodies of water. So I say what we teach here is a life skill. It's something they can take with them and continue to develop. And it's Joe likes to say, team sports are great. We're all for that, but nobody sits on the bench when you come to our school. And you're there for you. You're learning, whether you're a child or an adult, you're learning how to defend yourself. It's not just, even though we have competition to make it fun, but in the adult population, a lot of people are a little uncomfortable with it at first. And I said, don't be. You're not competing with anybody else. You're here to learn to defend who you are right now and who you're going to become. So I've been training for almost 7 years, and there are things that I don't do as well now that I could do 7 years ago, but I can still do something, and I still train when I can, as much as I can, to stay sharp on my skills. But it is meant to be for everybody. And Krav Maga, by its nature, we're talking about judo, karate, there's taekwondo. The Israelis did a beautiful job of studying all these different arts and saying, how can we build a system that is easy for people to learn, for the average person like us to learn how to defend ourselves. And yes, they still teach it to the Israeli Defense Forces. So it's a very practical, useful life skill, and you get fit doing it. It's exercise at the same time.
Yeah, I remember sweating like a son of a gun when I used to go to my classes, even though I was younger. Oh my gosh, I'd leave those classes just soaking with sweat. So yeah, you're right. As far as exercise goes and fitness, I can well imagine. But I still want to point out to the audience, even though you two are not doing a lot of the teaching in the classes, you are both still black belt qualified and have been doing this for a number of years.
Yes, and we have also gone through instructor training.
Yeah.
So we try, with all of our students, especially our advanced students, we want them to go. In fact, we require them to go through instructor training, because part of getting better at doing is being able to teach what you're doing. So we're very proud of our program. Our chief instructor has done a really terrific job in building a really strong, I would say deep curriculum that he continues to update and both pressure test and time test before we integrate it into our curriculum. And I'll tell you, our classes are fun.
Yeah, it's never boring.
It's never boring. They're fun. We try to keep them light. It's not a traditional martial art.
if you did taekwondo or any of the Asian martial arts, a lot of them there's a lot of strict discipline. We're not saying that there's no discipline, but we try to keep them light and practical. And so the focus is on getting home safely. That's sort of the bottom line.
Yeah,
is how to get yourself out of a situation to get home safely.
Yeah, let me just piggyback on that in one moment.
That is that what we teach is not just skills, it's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do what you need to do? It's awareness. How do you avoid having to do it? So it's a very holistic perspective on self-defense. So in all the instruction, it's all scenario based. So as you're learning these skills, you're picturing yourself in different possible situations so that you're not only physically prepared to respond, but you're mentally prepared.
A lot of what we also focus on, especially for our kids, is sort of their developmental stages, and how do we help develop them intellectually, socially, emotionally, and physically. And part of that is character development. And we kind of carry that through, not just for the children in our program, but also for our adults. So, for example, for our black belt students, we require that they do a public service for our community project. So about 3 years ago, we took our black belt students out to Willing Warriors, out here. And I think you're probably familiar with Willing Warriors. They've got a couple houses now.
Three
houses that they offer to wounded warriors to come and kind of reconnect with their families. So we spent a day out there clearing brush and working on that property and trying to get it back. So, our focus is not just to be a business, but our focus is to be a vital part of our community and to be an example of how, businesses can partner with other community leaders to make our place a safer community, a better community, and a more enjoyable community.
We've trained people from churches, from synagogues, assisted living, communities through the public libraries, the Prince William County Library System, Girl Scouts. We've got a Girl Scout troop coming in to our next Women's Self-Defense Seminar, or we'll train them separately if that's what they want. So we've got groups that will come and say, can you offer training? We have realtors come and ask us to train them because of them going into empty houses at night. And so we are available to groups if they need training, either at our school or we'll go to them, whatever, and we'll tailor it to whatever their needs are. So
let me ask you. You guys have had successful military careers, civil service careers, adjunct careers. Now you're in the self-defense field, spreading the information and knowledge. So I think I understand you have 5 grandchildren? 5, yeah. So what's next for you now? I mean, with the grandkids, what do you plan on doing next?
Well, we don't plan on stopping what we're doing right now.
We're in a sweet spot. We're having fun.
So we're fortunate that we're sort of semi-retired, but not completely, and so we have time and enough resources to kind of continue to do what we're doing. Sharon especially has kind of prioritized our grandkids in our lives. Our daughter runs a business on our property here in
equestrian business.
Manassas. Yeah. And so we see her children just about every day, and our other daughter lives next door, so we see her children. So and it's interesting because we kind of look back at that and say, we realize, because we see our grandkids just about every day, what we kind of did to our parents. we had these careers in the military and really didn't really, our daughters knew their grandparents, but not in the same way we're getting to know, our grandchildren. So, being an influence in a good way in their lives is really, really important to us. In fact, three of them train as well in our children's program. The other 2 will.
They're too little.
They're infants, right? So they get a pass for now, but they're gonna have to toughen up here soon enough, right?
So the infants are gonna have to toughen up eventually.
They're gonna have to toughen up. Yeah, they're gonna have to ruck it up,
Joe brings up a good point. I got to tell you, Paul, there was a moment really when our second grandkid came along, and the 2 of us just stopped and we said, oh my goodness, look what we did to our parents, but they were so proud of us being in the service, and they helped us. I'm sure a lot of people watching this could say, yeah, my families were there for us. And so they had to come to us in many times to be able to be a part of our children's lives. But we also, I tell people, when we were on active duty, we didn't take vacation. Our vacations were going to see parents, grandparents, because we wanted to make sure our children had time with their grandparents. So we usually didn't go any exotic places because we just wanted to stay connected as a family. So you have to work at that. But people who've never served in the military don't, they don't realize that's another sacrifice that families make. But luckily our parents loved us and they were willing to come to us. My mother came and stayed with me when I was in Korea, really a single parent for 2 years. Joe was up on the demilitarized zone commanding a battalion, and I was working on the 8th Army and the Joint Staff, and I had a 3 and a 6-year-old with me. And God bless her, she came during ultrafocus lens, which was a big 2-week exercise every fall, and she stayed at the house to help me with the children. I had an Ajima who would come in during the day, but she wasn't allowed to stay overnight. So I needed overnight care because I was tucked away for a long time. So anyway, I went off on a tangent of what families do for military families. It's amazing, and it's such a gift. And we appreciate it even more now that we're grandparents.
Well, I want to, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing so much with us, what you were doing in the military and your enthusiasm for what you guys are doing now with the self-defense community and in the community. But I want to ask you before we go, just briefly, if there was one message you would like to share with the audience, what would it be?
And you tell him we talked about this.
We did talk about this.
This is a joint answer he's going to do.
I would just say to any veteran is, do not undervalue your service and what you've gained from your time in the military. After I retired, I went back to work for the government, and I had a lot of veterans in my organization, and those guys and gals, I mean, they just bring such a wealth of experience and can-do-itiveness. I mean, you being able to get stuff done and completing the mission, resilience and drive and the mindset that you develop, even if you didn't enjoy your time in the military. Yeah. I have friends that, none of them, of course, in the Army, but I have friends that served in other services that maybe didn't enjoy it so much, but I still look at them and they undervalue sometimes the benefit that they gain. And I would just say, looking back at it, even through some tough times, I said, they made me better. They made me stronger. They made me better, resilient. I learned, somebody was telling me once this, you don't have much of a butt. I said, yeah, because most of it's chewed off. And so you learn from those hard knocks too, right? And so I absolutely value, we both do, the time we spent in the military. That some of the best friends you'll ever have, maybe some of the toughest times you ever had, but just it was a great experience, life-changing experience. And
it just gets ingrained into you.
Don't undervalue.
Don't undervalue
what you've learned and the contribution you can still make.
Yes,
it's huge.
It is huge.
That would be our recommendation.
Ours, together.
Yeah. Well, Joe, Sharon, I got to tell you, it's been great to have you on. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us this evening. And Cece, if you don't mind, would you put the website up one more time for us? There it is. There's the website, folks. You can go on there and take a look and see what they're doing, especially if you're in the area of Northern Virginia. I encourage you to go take a look, see if there's something there that you might be interested in. And Joe and Sharon, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on with us. Thank you for your service, and we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank
you for having us, Paul.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
And thank you, Cece.
Yes.
And for those of the audience out there, as you know, we'll always try to provide some additional information to you. This is an interesting calculator, and if you're a disabled veteran, you've often been confused on how the VA computes your disability ratings. I will tell you, this is put up here, roblevin.com, the VA calculator. It's very good. I encourage you to go on there and take a look at it, because it will show you how you can input different things for different parts of the body, and it will compute for you and show you how that is calculated. I know I've had some friends be really confused by it. So I encourage you, there it is, roblevin.com/VA calculator. Go in there and take a look. And for those of you, if you don't get a chance to do it now, remember, you'll find this resource on my webpage on the studio, and it'll be up there under the references. So please remember to take a look. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And again, thank Joe and Sharon for being on and sharing with us this evening. For those of you out there, you veterans and your families, we want to thank you for your service and what you're doing for the country. And for those of you, the families that are supporting them as well, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner, and we hope to see you on our next show.